Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Ambassador, great to have you here. Was really looking forward to talking to you about this. And by the way, we're also hearing there's going to be a New York State appellate court hearing slated for 2 p.m. based on that appeal. Could be overturned. We'll see where that goes next. In the meantime, we are hearing from members of Congress in this state who say that kids are showing up this morning in districts where the superintendent said masks are now optional after this ruling, and they're being forced to go home. Elise Stefanik tweeted this out. My office is answering calls from constituents, specifically parents who are informing us that their kids are being kept from entering schools unless they are wearing masks. This is illegal, she says. There is no stay on this court ruling. And that is fact for now. Ambassador, what is happening? This now pits kids against teachers, kids against kids, after kids have already been through so much with this pandemic.
You know, this is just unthinkable. I mean, honestly, you look at the fact that, Sanders, 65% of our fourth graders are not proficient in reading in this country. 66% of eighth graders are not proficient in reading or math. And you are literally going to watch schools sit there and send kids home based on whether they're wearing a mask or not. The priorities are all wrong. Parents have one job, and that's to make sure they raise their children to be successful with every opportunity that they could have in life. The problem is, never did parents think they were going to be fighting government bureaucrats and school officials in order to get that to happen. And I just say it's unthinkable that we're dealing with this right now, and parents aren't going to take it. I mean, you have basically the number of students that are being homeschooled in this country has doubled. That's 5 times over for black students. Parents are taking education into their own hands because they don't think that the $16,000 on average that's cost to educate a child per year, they're not seeing they're getting a return on investment. Instead, they're getting mental health issues, they're seeing their children in decline, and they're really going to worry about whether their kids can graduate from high school. We will have an entire COVID generation that we think we've got labor issues now. Wait till 5 or 6 years from now. We have got to wake up and start focusing on the quality of education and what we're going to do to help our children.
I know you feel so passionately about it. You put this out there. Ambassador Biden spent a year, you say, focusing on cultural issues that have only divided our country. We should be focusing on the COVID generation of children, you say, whose education is being lost right now in front of our eyes with the hashtag #TakeBackAmerica2022. I know you're a very optimistic person, and we can't be doom and gloom when it comes to our children. As you see these fights happening, as you see parents losing control, you just saw the report out in California where now they want to allow kids to get the vaccine without parental consent, no matter what their health history may be. That person giving the shot might not even know what that is. How do parents take back control of their kids?
Well, basically, you take them back by making sure that we start to put the pressure on every governor in this country, on every state legislature in this country, to make sure that parents aren't beholden to school districts where the teachers' unions are in charge, but that they actually have school choice. We saw during COVID, lots of wealthy families were able to move their children out of those public schools and into private schools. But what about parents that live where I grew up in rural South Carolina? They didn't have that luxury. Parents need to have the choice to put their children in the education and the school that they know is best for them.
All right, so we're going to be watching what happens with the appellate court hearing slated for 2 o'clock. If they get their way in reinstating this indoor mask mandate in New York, that will be big news. Next up, we're watching this escalating situation on the Ukraine-Russia border. Ambassador, you put this out on your Twitter feed. All Biden needed to do was stand by our allies and show strength to our enemies. He was weak when the Taliban took Afghanistan. He is once again showing weakness as Russia looks to take Ukraine. And if he continues to be weak, there's no telling what China will do with Taiwan. Yet John Kirby just said this a couple hours ago on our air here. Listen.
This is not the same situation as Afghanistan. And again, I think the State Department has done a commendable job making very clear, making transparent what our concerns are inside Ukraine.
Has this administration been very clear on how we plan to proceed, and should we be being more proactive when it comes to Ukraine?
This administration's been very clear on how weak they are. They've been clear on how weak they are by selling out the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that has made Europe so dependent and Germany very dependent on Russia. They have sold us out by letting the world watch what happened in Afghanistan as we watched our American soldiers die. They continue to show weakness in the fact that they can't seem to get it together with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, look, I dealt with the Russians for 2 years at the UN. My first speech at the Security Council was against Russia on their aggression in Ukraine. I know how they think. What they are doing is Putin absolutely gets this is an opportunity, the same way she does in North Korea and Iran. They see this as an opportunity where America has never had a president this weak, and if they want something, they better take it now because they know that Americans won't keep this in 2024, so they're trying to move now. What you look at is Putin's intention was never to go to war. It's not popular for Russians to want to see their troops go to war. He doesn't have the money to do it, but he's willing to do it if he can win something. And he smells blood in the water, and that's what we're seeing him do.
I've got to leave it there. Do you believe he moves in?
I think that if he's going to move in, it's going to be between February 20th and March 1st, between the last day of the Olympics and the day that he has to give his State of the Union address. And so it's up to Biden and NATO to pull it together, strengthen our spine, deter by sending anti-tank, anti-aircraft missiles, and make sure that we really deter Russia by putting sanctions in place and letting them know we mean business.
Ambassador Nikki Haley, always appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.